kick in the head. What do you suppose it is?
Ghosts, man, ghosts.
Hello and welcome to the Twilight Pwn, the internet's third most popular Twilight Zone podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Fred.
Hello.
How you doing this week, Fred?
I'm good. I feel like the clip you chose for the intro, ain't that a kick in the head? Kick in the head is remarkably prescient for...
yeah. Oh, the fourth season.
Yeah. Although we do have some... I don't know. Is it just come across as braggartly to talk about a milestone?
It's very P. Diddy, brush our shoulders off, but sure, if you want to toss it out there, why not?
I think, wasn't it Jay-Z who had the brush your shoulders off thing?
Exactly, Fred. Just like I said.
Yeah, we crossed the download milestone. Now I just feel embarrassed talking about it.
Yeah, okay. We hit 250K. We feel pretty good about it, so that's nice,
Just lands on the table.
Just throw it out there.
Deal with it.
Oh
yeah, this little pocket, 250K.
Once we hit episode 600 of the Twilight Zone and we cross 1 million downloads, that'll be a big one. But this is a good one because we are just going to start, over again with One for the Angels here in half a year or so, right?
I'm sure people are dying to hear what more observations we have about the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, now that we've seen them all, we'll have a totally different perspective. It's a fresh take.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear who you get to be your co-host for that podcast. But we're still stuck with our initial run of the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm. On the plus side, we are 3.5 years away from our second take on tonight's episode. The 30-Fathom Grave, a fourth season episode, the 104th of the production run. It aired originally on January 10th, 1963.
Incident 100 miles off the coast of Guadalcanal, time the present. United States naval destroyer on what has been a most uneventful cruise. In a moment, they're going to send a man down 30 fathoms and check on a noisemaker, someone or something tapping on metal. You may or may not read the results in a naval report, because Captain Beecham and his crew have just set a course that will lead this ship and everyone on it into the Twilight Zone.
Did you know off the top of your head what a fathom was? I had to take it to the wiki.
Well, I did know that it was a measure of distance,
well,
specifically
depth
in
that I knew. But
ocean.
how much is a fathom?
I did not know off the top of my head. I think doesn't the internet tell us it's about 6 feet?
Yeah. The interesting thing was that it was like the height of a person, or like the arm span of a person.
Yeah, like a little person, I guess.
Well, not everyone can be as toweringly tall and as extraordinarily buff as you, John. Just cut to LeBron James sitting there, a little microphone.
Fred, don't blow my cover. Come on.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't give last names. We like to write our own Serling-style intros. I feel like you're up.
Sure.
Do it.
The setting? Charted waters some 100 miles off the coast of a gaudy canal. Time? Twice as long as it needs to be. The USS Dutchman, on what has been a most uneventful cruise, is about to embark on a most uneventful episode of The Twilight Zone.
Short and sweet.
I figured, it's an hour long. It's going to take us a while to work through the plot. Let's get to it.
Well, I didn't get that memo. Buckle up. Here we go. Submitted for your swabbing, a deck. A deck with many sailors on it. All of these sailors are haunted, most by the suspicion that they couldn't cut it in the Air Force, but one in particular is haunted by a most haunting haunt. His name, Bell, and true to the principle of nominative determinism, Bell is driven ring-a-dink crazy by an oceanic tapping that's less Fred Astaire's toe and more Ed Allan Poe. So batten the hatches, tighten the mainsail, and watch this 30-fathom grave lead to a dirty madman's rave on the Twilight Zone.
Wow, all right.
It's just an homage to you.
Hey, I like it. The Dirty Allan Poe was great. And,
well, you kind of conflated the two, but yeah.
Whatever, it's good.
All right, cool. Well, high praise. It's a fourth season episode, as we mentioned, which makes it a little bit difficult to find on the internet. Can't find it on Netflix, but you can find it on Hulu for free. Of course, if you buy the DVDs and Blu-rays, you can watch it that way too. But we are going to spoil it, so consider this your official warning that we're going to tell you everything that happens in this very, very long episode of The Twilight Zone. So we open on a title card. Well, we actually open on the ocean, on a battleship in the South Pacific, and there's a title card over that, letting us know that we're in 1963. I was kind of wondering, did they feel the need to do that? Because if you see like a battleship, you just assume World War II in that era.
You know, I guess once you're on a ship and everyone's dressed, you know, as seamen, maybe it's hard to really time and place it. So,
yeah, that's a good point. They all pull out like their newspapers. And how do they do it?
Everyone's got like Burl Cream and like Buddy Holly records playing. I guess the latest Beatles albums would have dropped.
Yeah, they're all listening to Dylan on their little portable. Man, the times they are a-changing. Anyway, the first 2 minutes of the episode just kind of lays it on the line. It's like a very, very intense burst of Navy jargon. Just to like...
Yeah. It's like, we're on a ship, and it's the fourth season. Buckle up. Like,
there really is just like we're not f***ing around here. We looked at a Navy book of terms, and we're going to use it.
Apparently, like, Serling had a lesser-known brother who was into the ship industry.
Yeah, his older brother was like a airline correspondent and told him all about airline jargon and like Zeppos.
Yeah, he had like the lesser-known half-brother who worked for like boating times.
Yes, exactly. So after like 5 solid minutes of seal the compact and turn on the 6 amidships, that vibe, we meet our first actual character. It's Chief Bosun's Mate Bell. And he gets called into the captain's quarters to get quite the dressing down that I didn't really understand because it was all in Navy ease,
Well, there was one key term that I think we both understood very, very well. Let's have a listen.
You've rated 4-0 all the way down the line for as long as you've served on this ship. And suddenly, in the last 3 days, you've stowed away your seamanship in the trunk someplace and come up with a bunch of dumbhead boners I wouldn't expect from a 17-year-old boob. Bell, what is the problem?
The combination of semen so close to boner.
Now, I think what's fascinating about this is, in some ways it's years later we're getting our second boner reference, but these are both coming from 4th season episodes, which means, it's Printer's Devil, it was a boner-heavy season.
It was the season of the boner.
It was 1963. There was something in the air. Yeah.
1960 boner. Anyway, Bell can't really explain his series of boners. There's clearly something wrong going on with him that he can't say.
It was the 30-Fathom Grave or the Inexplicable Boners. They really they had a lot of trouble with this title.
Yeah. The Seafaring Boner.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh, boy. Lots of episode to get through.
Yeah,
let's have to lean on that boner joke.
Yeah, let's chug through it. In the next scene, they're in the sonar station, and 2 unidentified sailors. This episode has like a lot of unidentified characters. They're hearing an object. Could be a submarine. They don't quite know, and everybody's kind of surprised by this because obviously it's peacetime. So what's a submarine doing floating around near the gaudy canal? My next note is, there are many big khaki asses on display. It's really just a cavalcade. Because
that's life in this man's Navy, Fred.
Well, there's just like, they're on a ship, so they're always like kind of shooting up at like ladders going up and down. And anyway, they stop the boat on top of this mysterious object, and now people can hear the metal clanging everywhere, not just on the sonar.
Yeah.
And it seems to have an effect on Bell, the boner maker from before. He passes out and wakes up in the sickbay of the ship. Bell's like physical acting is wacky. Did you catch that in this scene? He's lying in bed and like he keeps being like, "Oh, there's a force that's compelling me to get up." And
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm blanking on this particular moment. I felt like that actor. I mean, he's an interesting performance. I dare say a good one, but I'm not sure if I just was worn down by the end because his performance is like 35 minutes of the episode.
Yeah. Well, there's some sort of
maybe just like weirded me into submission.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, something's going on with Bell. He keeps feeling compelled by some unseen force to get out of bed.
I can't. I get this feeling. I can't stay in one place. I gotta get up and go out. It's just this crazy feeling that
That you what, dude?
that somebody is
ordering me someplace, is pulling me someplace. And if I didn't stay put, if I didn't fight it, I'd go up on deck and I'd never come back. Huh? Pretty nuts.
It's a Serling written episode, and I think we've had this happen in an episode or two. That sounded like pretty naturalistic dialogue, and I think that's the actor kind of playing with it a little more and dragging it out. And it's at least it's different. It's something unusual, and unfortunately it's fourth season, so he feels like he has the liberty to drag every line into well, you know, the thing it's I feel it's got a mumblecore vibe to it, but
it's like a different kind of padding. Like in the standard Serling episode, that would be like, a strange feeling is coming over me that I would describe as not unlike a feeling that resembles a sensation. But yeah. No, I mean, I thought he was all right. He's intense. He's another one of those actors like the guy from, what was the one about we did it like 5 seconds ago, Execution. The Cliffordsville guy. Like, he's like, maybe he's not like great, but he is interesting to watch, you know?
I think this guy's got a more believable vibe to him for me than the
time-traveling cowboy. Anyway.
I am from the Old West.
Anyway, back to the sonar room. They're going to send a diver down to check out this mysterious object. And it's in a suit and heads down. And
let's also be sure to mention, I think the diver was very handsome, though. There's something to be mentioned there.
Oh, yeah?
He kind of had didn't you think he had kind of like a Frankie Avalon vibe to him or something? He looked like he could just, pull out the big mic, like the Back to the Future style mic, and kind of serenade him. I don't know. He was dreamy.
I don't know. The words Frankie Avalon and vibe don't really go well together. Kind of oil and water there. I hear you. He's got kind of like those big wet eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Let's move along. Anyway, the diver gets down underwater, and the dreamy diver takes a little jaunt on the ocean floor, and he finds a submarine.
This appears to be shot almost entirely, if not entirely, on location on a boat.
Yeah.
And there are actual seeming shots of people diving. Now, I don't know if the diving shots were stock footage. I mean, obviously the on-boat shots couldn't have been, and I thought it was,
No, I agree.
It's a positive.
It is a positive. It doesn't feel like it was shot like in a one studio.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they have just like a shot of a big boat passing from 500 yards out, and then it's all clearly on a set like Judgment Night or something.
The underwater shots they did film. They're not stock footage. You notice as you watch them that they're like occurring in a very limited space because it's not a giant.
Well, because it's Rod Serling's pool,
yes,
but still, it's good.
Yeah, but they do have actual shots of the diver that match up with what's going on. It's not stock footage, and what's happening is the diver's going in and trying to like sort of suss out the situation and find out what the the number of the sub is. And he gets back up and he lets the crew know that the sub has been damaged by gunfire and he can't identify it and he can't open it, but the clanging persists, which is very mysterious.
He had a very interesting report to give about the ship.
That was the other thing, Captain. She wasn't stuck in tight. Deep, yes, but not tight. She seemed to be swaying when I was down there.
Oh, God. It's all we have.
Yeah. So there's that.
I was sure that you would grab the clip of them calling on the telephone and being like, "Hello, unidentified objects. This is Lady." Did you notice that?
Hello, what?
They said, "Hello, unidentified object. This is Lady."
Oh, I think I did think about that one, but I actually ended up getting a lot of clips. It's a long episode.
All right.
I also, this is kind of a non sequitur, but were you just listening close? This is kind of the like radio intercom of the ship.
Now diver going over the starboard side.
Yeah, it sounded like Rod Serling. I thought that.
I was wondering, does Grams cover that? Did Serling just happen to like throw in?
I read the trivia. Let's hear it again.
Now diver going over the starboard side.
Yeah,
side?
Yeah.
That's a Rod side if I ever heard one.
And I've heard a lot of Rod sides. Hold on. Fill up space while I look at this. Well, here's the thing. He's not credited, and Grams doesn't specifically mention it. And it also is unlikely because, throughout most of the fourth season, Rod Serling was teaching at Antioch, and, he could barely even, be troubled to go and record the intro, so it seems unlikely that he was,
It seems very unlikely.
But it did sound like him. I noticed that as well.
Yeah, there's one or two times when the radio comes on and it sounds a lot like Serling, but, we'll leave that one to the sequel of Graham's book.
So obviously it's very mysterious because you have this clanging noise. It's a submarine that appears very damaged. Is it a piece of equipment? Is someone alive? We don't know. What we do know is that we're back in the sick bay, and Bell is getting zanier and zanier. Did you notice he has a tattoo on his hand? I thought that was kind of interesting.
No, what was it of?
It was of an anchor, which obviously makes sense for a sailor.
Sure.
But it's, I don't know, it looks very like Brooklyn 2015. I definitely have 3 friends who have that tattoo. But I thought
maybe the censors wouldn't let him wear, the anchor on the bicep thing. They couldn't show that much skin.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird just to see a tattoo on TV in 1963.
Well, I think I feel like sailors were the people who had tattoos, it was acceptable or at least understood that sailors had tattoos. Everyone else, it was very, very inappropriate until I guess about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. You have tattoos, don't you?
I got a couple.
Don't you have that weird German Boy Scout tattoo?
What are you talking about? Yeah,
you do, don't you?
It's the AKA the tattoo that meant I had to wear long sleeve shirts at work every day for the rest of my life because it's on my wrist.
Cool.
Yeah,
listen up,
good
kids.
Thinking. I'm not anti-tattoo, but just think about placement very carefully. That's all I'm saying.
And also think about having to explain. No, a German Boy Scout organization, not the other thing.
That makes it better.
Anyway, let's move along.
Speaking of, I think I missed this, but early on when the captain's kind of browbeating
Bell,
the chief, I think, he says something about you're a Sea Scout on his first mission or something.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Sea Scouts? Having grown up landlocked, I wasn't sure if that was just something that I missed.
No, is it? But the boy. I mean, did you look it up? Is it an actual thing?
Oh, of course not. But I assumed.
Okay, play the clip again.
Yeah, it's like an offshoot of Boy Scouts. Specialized that promotes boating skills, etc. But I guess I was even in Boy Scouts, but I never heard of the Sea Scouts.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Oakland and Berkeley,
you were in a port area.
No, I was in a port area, but I was also my parents definitely made me stand out on the street corner when I was 8 years old, yelling "No blood for oil" during the first Iraq entanglement. So they weren't exactly fast tracking me through the ROTC. So maybe they're Sea Scouts. I didn't know about it.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on. Bell's just kind of going crazy, and it's sort of a repetitive scene. It's just a progression.
This is kind of the part of the episode where it's we kind of get 2 scenes knocked back and forth over and over. We get scenes of Bell kind of flipping out in the infirmary, and then we cut to a scene of a dive and a report on the dive, and then Bell freaks out, and then we have another dive report on the dive.
Yeah, it's kind of lame just because the progression of information reveal about the dive is very artificial. At first, we can't read the number because it's been scarred by gunshots. And then it's the submarine's out of the ground now, Captain. It's why? We didn't do anything. It's just...
I did find it amusing when they go down the second time and he's I can see the number, and he reads the number to him. The captain has this line.
Get that book with the hull numbers.
What? I just felt like...
What do you say?
Get that book with the hull numbers.
Yeah.
Get that book with the whole numbers. I just felt like they were throwing around so much Navy technical jargon, and then he's get the book with the number things.
Yeah. Well, this was only 1963. I'm sure now there's a term for that. It's the reversed aft, number page container. But sorry, yeah. Anyway, they look up sub number 714 in their highly technical manual, and it's crazy because...
Yeah, it's real crazy. Turns out this ship sank in 1942.
1942?
Well, that was 20 years ago. Well, Captain Beecham, who's down there? Who's inside that sub?
Somebody who dies damn hard.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
It really does.
McClane's just bouncing around in that sub, taking out the Germans one after another.
Why are they so convinced that someone's... I know that there was like a little, like, I tap, you tap type of thing earlier on, but it didn't seem that convincing. Like, why don't they... They do, like, idly mention, oh, maybe it's just a piece of equipment, but that seems to be the obvious explanation, you know?
I want to believe most people on the ship think it's probably just the tapping, just like
maybe the fact that they can hear it like above the water is kind of crazy, and that's
that's the part that's like eerie and doesn't really make sense, but
whatever, it doesn't matter.
It was a good go into commercial.
Yes, it was. And when we get back, the captain sits down with his crewmen to recap the plot of the episode.
Did you notice that I don't remember his, let me look, the OOD, it's basically like the captain's right-hand man through most of the episode. Almost certain it's a young Bill Bixby.
Really?
And I thought he had a very strong Jogo Lev look to him.
Who's Jogo Lev?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Oh. Hot or not?
I thought that was like some weird like Greek basketball player or something like that. Gosh. I have to look it up.
I'll have to. I got a photo. I'll send it over.
We'll confirm that later and put it on the Tumblr. But so the captain kind of recaps the plot to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and the information comes out that Bell, the crazy guy, had some sort of traumatic thing happen to him in World War II. Conveniently, right here, this hasn't been mentioned before for some reason. And then we got,
those dots have not been connected, not immediately apparent, but
anyway,
more than 20.
we cut to Bell in sickbay, and he's performing like a high school dance routine. Like, it's very much like, like when a break dancer like pretends like he's a marionette. It kind of has that vibe. So he gets pulled out of bed, and we get like an effect shot where he's looking in a mirror, and we see these sort of ghostly soldiers, or sailors rather, in the mirror beckoning to Bell to come join them. And I know we cut it away to another dive probably, but then back in sick bay, Bell's freaking out some more. He goes out into the hall, and we see the ghostly sailors again. They're soaking wet, and they're calling out to him. The doctor drags him back into the room and tries to shake him out of his craziness.
I think it's around this time the doc kind of calming him down. He has his hand on his leg a good deal. There's just like a touch too much intimacy.
Just a bit. But, he's also very much of the like, don't be crazy school of psychotherapy,
Well, he's a doc on a ship. He's probably not trained in psychiatry.
He should have been like, if you can just be not crazy until midnight, you'll be sane forever.
Right, exactly.
But the doc actually gets some confirmation of this crazy ghost thing when he goes out into the hallway, I guess, and he sees some seaweed where the ghost sailors were purported to be, which is obviously shocking.
Let's be clear. I found this kind of amusing. So he walks up to the seaweed, he picks it up, and then we get this.
Seaweed.
I was pretty sure that was seaweed, but I think that was a decision made later of like, are people going to know what that is? Let's just throw it. Rod, can you come over here and say the word seaweed while you're doing all this other radio stuff?
Seaweed. I also did just get your Joseph Gordon-Levitt hot or not, and I sort of see it ish.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of angles, so
and I've seen them all.
I've got them all. I've seen them. I've seen it all.
Anyway, after all this seaweed carrying on, we get yet another diving scene just for fun.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like at the beginning I'm like, wow, they actually filmed a diving scene. That's pretty impressive. And then it's like, oh, they just stuck in the pool and shot for like the full hour so they could really get their money's worth on those diving scenes, huh?
Anyway, right. I forget I think the purpose of this last dive is that they're going to get a sub-rescue boat in from somewhere else on the ocean because they think there's got to be someone down there, and the clanging is getting fainter. So. And when the diver gets back up, there's some... Did you catch this really weird slang?
What's he say?
Well, the captain, like the diver's like, didn't pan out, and he says, no soap. And the diver says, no soap. And the captain says, that frosts. That really frosts. You didn't catch that?
I do remember that, yeah.
It's just funny,
good.
like, they ran out of naval jargon to pad out the ep, and, they're relying on beatnik slang at a certain point.
Yeah.
Anyway, the diver did find something at the very last of 500 dives. It's a pair of dog tags that were attached to the sub, and he gives them to the captain, and it turns out that it was Bell's dog tags.
I don't know. I don't have a dun dun dun.
No, that was pretty good. That or Ring-a-Ding would have done it. Anyway, in the next scene, the captain's going to talk to Bell about this whole thing, and Bell is telling this sort of long story about how his boner sank the submarine back in the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I've got a part of the clip of this. This is, this is very fourth season. It's like a 4.5 minute long explanation of what's going on, but I tried to just get a bit of it.
This thing has been bugging me. I know what it is.
All right, what is it?
I got out, see? One guy in our whole crew, I got out. Oh, I got picked up later by one of our destroyers, see? I got out. You understand that, Captain? See? I sunk that sub, right? I was responsible.
Yes.
I got out.
All right, Bill, I want you to listen to me now.
Yeah, that's what this thing is. See, them guys down there, and that sub, they know I'm up here.
Bill, I want you to hear me out now.
Yeah, that's what this thing has been, see. I should be down there.
it's a little much, but it's cool. I don't know. It's hard to... We were talking about this earlier.
It's just a little... It's too little too late, It's like, I think it's a good performance, but it's also coming 45 minutes into the episode when you've just the interest is gone at this point.
Yeah, it's also just it's so fake that it's why the very sub that has this mysterious clanging?
Right. It's a little...
You don't think they would have, that information would have been shared with this guy earlier?
Right.
Word gets around. I mean...
I did think that this scene developed kind of a fun Goodwill Hunting vibe, of the captain just being it's not your fault. No, I got you. Yeah. It's not your fault. Not you, Captain. You too.
It's one of a long line of very permissive, forgiving military officers.
Oh yeah.
Remember in the last
he's
flight
hey, you haven't been cleaning the deck the way I like. I'm really gonna dress you down. Yeah. It's I killed everyone on my ship. Hey, buddy, we've been there. We all been there.
Did the best of us. Yeah. Anyway, at the end of this. Bell is he's hearing these ghostly, his former comrades on the submarine call out to him. Mm-hmm. They're urging him to come out, and he keeps saying, they're calling muster on me, which I guess is a kind of roll call or something like that. You call them. Yeah. Is that what that is essentially?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's they're calling my name, they're calling to get me. And so he breaks free from the captain's sweet embrace and runs above decks. The chase scene of him running through the hallways yelling, they're calling muster on me, it lacks dignity. There's just a...
Yeah, I do definitely remember. You have to hunch, you kind of have to step high. It's just tough.
Yeah. And I just he's a kind of big gangly dude and just yelling, they're calling muster on me, and it's all right. It passes quickly. He jumps over the edge.
It doesn't pass muster for you, Fred?
He jumps over the edge. And they try and find him, but sadly they cannot. And then we cut forward a little bit in time, and the sub-rescue crew has arrived, and the dreamy diver with those deep blues is looking through the wreckage of the old submarine, and he sees something that greatly disturbs him. And when he gets back to the captain, he lets him know that...
Yeah, he pulls out his flashlight, and he's got a little something to tell him.
There were 8 men in the control room. 8 men, or what was left of them, and one of them...
had a hook for a hand. Okay, no, I'll cut it. He had a hammer in his hand.
One of them was in the back seat the whole time.
The back seat of the sub, exactly.
So obviously, you know, that confirms the whole Twilight Zone-y thing.
There's actually one little beat after that I found very amusing, of the captain kind of, after he's just heard this kind of confirmation of the scary story to tell in the dark that there may or may not have been a dead ghost hammering.
Yeah.
He kind of looks out to sea and he gets really thoughtful and waxes poetic.
Funny thing how long it takes some men to die, or to find any peace at all. Sometimes I think that's the worst thing there is about war. Not just what it does to the bodies, what it does to the minds.
You've seen The Lost Boys, right?
We mean the vampire movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
That whole line just totally reminded me of the last line of The Lost Boys, when like the crazy old grandpa comes in and saves the day. Spoiler alert, sorry. And like he's just kind of wandering in a daze, and then his last line is like, the one thing about this town, all the damn vampires. It's like you've got this like very level-headed captain who just seems to be like, that's the one thing, the worst thing about war. Sometimes it makes zombie men who just won't die until they reclaim the guy who they feel is responsible. Yeah. It's a damn shame.
Yeah. Anyway, what's up, Rod?
Small naval engagement. The month of April 1963. Not to be found in any historical annals. Look for this one filed under H for haunting in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, nice try there.
Pulling out the old file cabinet.
Yeah, that musical stab there was a nice last-ditch attempt.
Right. Did we spook you then? Okay, never mind. All right.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, very straightforward. A lot out of it. Yeah. I mean, I do think, like, you know, for a generation of men who'd fought in World War II, a lot of them were haunted by the experience, and, you know, certainly not was all like, you know, rah, let's go back home and, like, invent rubber and have kids, you know, like, or I guess rubber had already been invented at that point. I wanted to say, like, invent
plastics.
Yeah, plastics, that's what I meant. But yeah, so this is maybe, like, I don't know, like an allusion to the fact that war could be a very haunting experience. But
I mean, there's like a touch of the idea of survivor's guilt. You know, there's like some version of the story where it's a little vaguer between, is this all in his head or is it a ghost story? Yeah. And I guess, you know, it's not exactly definitive at the end, even though it's pretty definitive, but...
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it is nice that they kept it, like, somewhat ambiguous, because you remember the diver, the dreamy diver, was like,
yeah, he has two excuses. He basically says, like, yeah, there was this one thing, rap tap tapping,
it was blowing in the wind underwater.
I kind of feel like this has the feel of like a Matheson type, like, ghost yarn, just not very well done. It doesn't have like a drive, or like it doesn't have a strong through line that's like pushing you to the end. The information is doled out so piecemeal but like not in a organic way. It's just like, okay, we got to make it another 10 minutes to the next commercial break. Let's just fill it with like Navy jargon and recycled scenes, and then we'll tell the next big exciting thing. And like by the time you get to the big end, it's just like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, the episode is really just like 2 minutes and 12 seconds of plot and then an hour of Navy jargon. Like, if you strip it out, it goes by pretty quick. I do think it's kind of like a missed opportunity, because, like, the way they, like, you know, spoon out the information is just so cockeyed. Like, it's like if you didn't find out until the end of The Great Gatsby that, like, Daisy and Gatsby had a relationship before or something like that. It's like, it's like the drama of the plot should be the fact that, like, this guy's got a secret and he doesn't want to tell anybody about his cowardly behavior, but it's driving him crazy, you know?
I feel like the Bell is giving a decent performance, and, you know, it's not like this great story, but it's a decent enough little yarn. It's just killed by the hour-long format. I wonder, this is another one, and I know we say this probably with a lot of fourth seasons. Some of them I think you could just chuck all together, but this is one where it's like, 25 minutes. This could have been like a 7-ish decent little Twilight Zone. Probably wouldn't have been a classic either way, but it could have been entertaining enough.
Yeah, I feel like we should have made like a jingle for like,
Right.
if it wasn't fourth season, would it have sucked?
Right.
And I think you're right. This one passes muster, so to speak. I think it would have been all right, but it's just kind of boring.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything really unique to say otherwise.
Play that boner clip again?
All right, let's hit it.
You've rated 4-0 all the way down the line for as long as you've served on this ship. And suddenly, in the last 3 days, you've stowed away your seamanship in a trunk someplace. And come up with a bunch of dumbhead boners I wouldn't expect from a 17-year-old boob. Now, what is the problem?
What does he say? 17-year-old boob?
Yeah, so
buoy? I thought he was saying buoy to be. I don't know.
It'd be nice if we got semen, boner, and boob all in one clip.
What we doing next?
Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Yeah. Scott, Zingri, Martin Grams Jr., Zingri and Grams, and IMDb.
Well, as with any show or movie that has anything to do with the military, there is quite a lot of trivia to go with this one, so let's get to it. Mike Kellen portrayed the main character, Chief Bell. He died on the 26th of August, 1983. Simon Oakland, who portrayed the captain, died 3 days later, August 29th, 1983. The ship that was used for the exterior shots in the episode was decommissioned a mere 2 weeks before, or died on August 11th, 1983. It's like one's already kind of a stretch, and then adding in the ship, it's like, you've kind of highlighted how this isn't really that crazy of a coincidence.
I kind of get how like people like to find stuff like that, but I just wonder like what their families think looking at their IMDb page, and it's like, he died the same month as a ship of a TV show he was in a long time ago. It's like, great. Anyway.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as like Adams and Jefferson dying on July 4th. You know, it's not that cool.
It's so cool that they both died. Anyway.
The position of the ship and sub is given as 0930 north, 16048 east, which places them about 2 miles north of the island of Nura in the Solomon Islands, roughly in the middle of the Solomon Sea.
Does that mean it's accurate or inaccurate? Is that a goof or?
Well, it ties into a goof because, as we said, a fathom was measured by a man's outstretched arms, later standardized as 6 feet.
Puny man's outstretched arms.
Sure. Therefore, the title translates as the 180-foot grave. But the coordinates would place the boat in approximately 5,600 feet of water depth, 10 miles from land. So people have like cross-referenced other goofs to really nail this one down.
I could definitely imagine Martin Grams Jr. out there on a boat in the ocean, just like lowering it down and being like, nope, doesn't check out.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I'll try and get through these quick. The exterior shots of the ship were of the Mighty Mucks USS Mullinix DD-944, a Forrest Sherman-class destroyer. Interiors were done on board the USS Edson DD-946. The hull of the sunken submarine 714 was not actually used by the Navy until August 1979. In the episode, it was said it was built in 41, but the 41 subs, Fred, I'm sure you remember, had 21X hull numbers.
Yeah,
so
totally.
That's a bit of a boner. The diver using a dive... I guess I should go ahead and assume the voice here.
All right.
We got 3 more here. The diver uses a diving helmet with an oxygen hose. By 1962, the year this episode was made, the U.S. Navy had phased out such antiquated diving equipment in favor of aqualungs. Oh. The seaweed Doc finds on the corridor floor is rockweed, which couldn't be found in the South Pacific miles from any shoreline.
That's amazing.
That's like, come on. Now, like, the marine biologists are like, piling on.
Wouldn't it have been amazing if, like, in that, like, bad ADR voiceover about the seaweed, the guy's like, rockwood. Why, someone must have brought it from another location.
Right.
Anyway.
And then last... Doc Matthews is an NCO corpsman, a ship large enough to be commanded by an officer of staff rank, like Beecham, who wears the insignia of a commander or lieutenant commander, would have a surgeon of commissioned officer rank. You know, that's a very cocky goof when you can't identify whether Beecham's a commander or lieutenant commander.
Yeah, let's find that guy. rub his face in it.
All right, that's my very long trivia. What do you got?
Well, I have another source of trivia. Martin Grahams Jr.'s The Twilight Zone, Unlocking the Door to a Television Classic. A little station identification. Apparently, this was actually filmed on, as you mentioned, 2 different Navy ships, and there was a lot of communication with the Navy to kind of make sure that they approved of the script, because obviously you have to go through a lot of different channels if you want to film on an active military vessel, which they did. The Navy actually was kind of interesting. They asked for a couple changes, one of which was they didn't want Bell sort of screaming and breaking down at the end, but Serling actually did get his way on that one. There was another change. I'm not sure if this was the Navy or just kind of good taste, but Serling originally wanted to show like skeletons at the very end, like presumably there'd be a skeleton holding up a hammer, being like,
The Navy was just like, come on, Rod, that's kind of hack.
Exactly. You budding screenwriters in the Navy. But apparently it was everyone on the Navy ship was really, they got along well with the production crew, and at the end of the filming, the production company gave the USS Edson a beautiful silver inscribed punch bowl, which apparently they still use to this day when they have like official functions on the ship.
The Navy gave them a fine watch fob, and they cut off all their hair sold all their punch to get it.
Yes, exactly.
What a wacky mishap.
Yeah, what about bios?
Mike Kellen played Chief Bell. He was in a film and a TV show called The Wackiest Ship in the Army, which kind of funny. This is directly from his bio. Burly, coarse, raspy-voiced Mike Kellen was often cast as a tough cop, gangster, or soldier, usually a corporal or sergeant, so it may be surprising to some that during his stint in the U.S. Navy during World War II, he was a lieutenant commander.
Interesting that he was actually in the Navy.
I think he was also kind of like, I don't know if Blue Blood is pushing it a bit far, but he apparently did have this kind of like career of kind of blue collar or lower class guys, but I think he had a bit of a high class upbringing.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I don't know, interesting. Simon Oakland played Captain Beecham. We saw him as DeCruz in the Rip Van Winkle caper. He was kind of like, I just stared at him for a while. I was just like, I know I've seen him. I know he's not Ted DeCorsia, but he's so close to Ted DeCorsia. Who is he?
No, I definitely recognized him, and it's funny because I feel like the kind of like ay carajo, like his like weird, impetuous, impulsive, nonsensical criminal elements came out a little bit in his performance here and there. Anyway.
Bill Bixby played the OOD, who I'm almost certain is the Joe Golev guy. He's most famous probably as playing David Banner in the Incredible Hulk TV show, but he was also in My Favorite Martian and the show The Courtship of Eddie's Father, which those were all 3 pretty popular shows in their day, so I don't know.
Those are shows I primarily only know as little pop culture references on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Right.
Like, I've definitely never seen any of those shows, but I know every now and then Crow or somebody says, Mr. Eddie's father, and I'm like, okay, that's a thing.
Well, I will recommend to you and any of the listeners who have any interest in the MST3K subsequent spin-off thing, Riff Tracks, they did an episode of an Incredible Hulk TV show. Yeah. It's one of my favorite things they ever did. Really? It has a very, very strong Riding with Death vibe to it. It's like super 70s, super goofy. We'll figure out a way for you to check that out. He was also in a couple Night Gallery episodes. He directed 30 episodes of the television show Blossom, and he was a professional magician. Wow. His IMDb page is extraordinarily long. If you want to learn more trivia, go for it. Let's see. A lot of people in this episode, but not actually a lot of repeat players. Written by Serling, directed by Perry Lafferty, who also did Valley of the Shadow and In His Image, which closes out the Lafferty oof of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen Valley. Oh, no, have we? That was the ham sandwich one.
Valley of the Shadow was the ham sandwich.
Kind of sad.
And In His Image was the doubles.
Yeah, I actually think, both of those are 4th seasons. I seem to remember. I think.
Yeah, all 3. Yeah, I think he was like kind of brought in as a ringer who could handle this like longer form.
I mean, In His Image, I thought was relatively well directed.
I think it's kind of like default, it's like probably In His Image. Yeah. All right, and that brings us to the
Inevitable.
MST3K.
I feel like we hit a dry spell recently, but we're back.
It's been a little while. We're back
to our What the hell is this again? It's finding a connection between Mystery Science Theater 3000, a favored TV show of myself and John's, and the Twilight Zone. What do we got this week?
This week, Louis Elias played crewman. He was also uncredited as soldier in the third season. The movie featured in the third season, War of the Colossal Beast.
There really were just like a horde of anonymous Navy dudes. Basically, the captain and Bell and the diver maybe had the vague outlines of a personality.
Right. It kind of had a vibe like The Thing, the 80s version of The Thing. There were a lot of people who, in theory, I'm sure the actors believed they had characters, but it didn't really
massive backstory for Crewman 3.
Right.
I was born in New Mexico. Anyway, what about IMDb ratings?
IMDb gives this episode a 7.5.
Very smack dab in the middle, which...
Way back when we had a short discussion of Stephen King's take on the Twilight Zone, and he was surprisingly rather critical of it back in the day and from his book Dance Macabre, and he singled out and said that in his opinion, the fourth season was actually the home of some of the best episodes. I remember he singled this episode out for particular praise. Huh. So let's keep that in mind in our rating discussion as well.
I know he's a big fan of the podcast. Yeah. Don't want to step on any toes. Far and away not the worst fourth season episode, and I think the kind of like naval realism while pursued very much too far is commendable. And I think there's something kind of eerie and nice about it, but it's definitely just pretty boring and kind of like kind of clumsily handled. The information is parceled out, and there's no real conflict exactly. It's just they slowly learn more, and then the guy jumps off the ship. So I don't know. It's like it's definitely kind of a 4-bore-ish for me. What about you?
Here's a question for you. It's a ghost story. Were you ever in any way scared or spooked or tense?
I think there was like maybe a good 20 seconds or so. Like when you I'm in all sincerity, like when you first hear the clanging, it's a little bit eerie. But then like when it's like just daytime and everyone's like, "What's that clanging?" And there's actually a little bit of trivia I didn't mention. I think there was this complication of they wanted to shoot a lot of it at night, which I think would have upped the eerie, but it was just too complicated to do it on a Navy ship, especially because they were like guests on the ship. So they just basically went, day for night, so to speak.
You know who you got to get in on that.
Medford.
Bring him in. Yeah. He's going to make some magic.
If Midnight Medford had been available. Anyway, I don't know. It's like a 4 or 5, I guess. I was not scared. To answer your question, no. Yeah. Even Death Ship, while boring at times, had some scary moments. This one, not so much.
I do think the setup is eerie. I think there's like good bones to this story. That's why I'm pushing this. Like it could have been an okay yarn as a half hour. Yeah. I think the weird clanging it's a good kind of unsettling. Like what the hell's going on down there? It's all a good setting and setup for a ghost story, but the way it's drawn out, there is like virtually no scares. I do like the performance. I think both the performers and the leads are good. It's just any kind of like excitement that could be garnered out of that is just totally deflated by the pace of this episode, which is terrible. Yeah. And so, it's another 4-bore. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4-bore plus because I do think there's a lot of potential to it. I'm sad that it was so unrealized, but 4 plus.
No, I think that's actually a great score because it's just boring, but there's like a lot of the performances give it that little plus. I do think like also I feel like it feels a lot like a Star Trek episode or something. Like it's like the crew encounters like a weird, mysterious ship that has something strange going on. Probably the Star Trek episode wouldn't end with boo, but like I do think that like there's an element of it that I feel like,
or with like Scotty jumping off the ship and drowning.
Hey, Captain! But I don't know. I feel like it's like this episode could be like the progenitor of other better things. But it itself is a 4+ bore or 4-bore plus. So that wraps it up for 30-Fathom Grave. Thank you to whoever requested it, if anyone did.
Andy on Twitter.
Thank you, Andy. Next week we're going to be doing an iconic episode.
Yes.
But you will have to find out what it is by going to our social media empire. Slowly but surely growing. Or you can also just email us or get in touch. There's lots of ways to do it. John, what are they?
You could send us an email at twilightpwn, pwn@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at Twilight Pwn. You can check out our website, twilightpwn.tumblr.com. You can like us on Facebook. You could listen to us on any kind of podcatcher app. And you could subscribe to us on iTunes. If you're over there, if you'd leave us a rating or a review, we really appreciate those.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give a shout out to a listener, Jared, who follows us on Twitter. A couple weeks back, I asked a question which was kind of led to an interesting discussion on Twitter, which was, what's, like, if you take the amount of time that passes in the episode, the shortest Twilight Zone episode and the longest Twilight Zone episode? And I thought Jared had very clever answers. Off the top of your head, do you feel like you would have a stab at either one of those, or did you see this conversation?
I saw the conversation play out. I probably would have blown it.
Yeah.
I mean, Shadow Play kind of popped to mind as like the shortest, because Dreams, it's like hard to tell.
I was thinking
what time is passing at all.
I was thinking it was going to be Perchance to Dream, because it's like just the guy walking into the, well, we're
right.
going to spoil a lot of episodes here, but yeah. Right. I always thought it was Shadow Play or Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge because of the, the twist of that one. But
yeah.
Jared, I think Shadow Play is definitively it. And then I was thinking of all the time travel episodes, but really the mother of all time travel episodes is Odyssey of Flight 33, where they go all the way back to fake dinosaur times.
Right.
Yeah. So shout out to Jared. Yeah. Any burning questions for me at the end here, John?
Oh God!
If you had to be in the Army, the Navy, or the Marines, what would you be? Or sorry, the Army, the Air Force, or the Navy?
What about the Coast Guard?
What about Canada? No, but just choose from the big
I feel
three.
like have we not covered this before?
No.
I've always thought, both my dad and my uncle were in the Army, but I've always felt like if I were to have joined one, I would have definitely gone Navy. I don't know why. Maybe I just like the color blue a lot. I feel like
that's a big reason.
Like the travel would be. I think I don't know. I haven't gotten to do a lot of time on boats, but I enjoy being on boats. It would have, if I had at the time, it would have been terrible because I'm a very tall man and, naval life is not well designed for tall people, but that would have been my instinct. How about yourself?
Well, I'm afraid of flying, so probably the Air Force wouldn't have been it for me.
Well, but only a tiny percentage of people in the Air Force actually fly.
That's true. I was thinking of myself as like Maverick there.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, let's get real. I'd be like some guy at a computer telling other people where to go.
Exactly.
So it doesn't really matter.
I think that's
where
part of the Navy. It's like I can't really envision myself having to like storm a beach and shoot people if I'm in the Navy. I'm on a boat. I'm far away. We're launching missiles from like 3 miles away. I feel comfortable.
Which branch of the Army has the most podcasters in it?
Exactly.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you next week, John.
All right. Talk to you later.